Tonight, take a slow breath and settle in. This is a gentle human story about family, timing, and the way love sometimes arrives wearing an unexpected suit. My older brother asked his college roommate to stand beside him as best man. I flew home to the Blue Ridge Mountains thinking I'd clap, smile, and leave unchanged. Instead, the best man noticed the me I'd been hiding. He made tea, offered kindness, and held a mirror steady until I could trust what I saw. He didn't take me, he invited me, and I said yes, carefully, completely, and forever. That night, if fair. This kind of compassionate, slow-bloom love story nourishes you. Please tap subscribe, leave a kind comment, and share this episode with someone who needs warmth tonight. Keep your headphones close, your heart open, and join me as we step gently into the moments that changed everything. Stay a while. I was 28, and my brother Caleb was 31, and our mother had kept the family house in Asheville just the way we left it. Magnolia-scented, front porch rocking chairs pointing toward the forgiving Blue Ridge sky. I flew in from Boston the Wednesday before his wedding. It would be a vineyard affair out in Henderson County, mint and wild grass around our ankles, black tuxes promised to be breathable, though anybody born and raised in North Carolina knows better. Caleb had asked his college roommate to be best man, a man I remembered vaguely as tall, polite, reserved. His name was Ryan Porter. He was 33, a family medicine doctor in Raleigh. He had the sort of face that looks like listening. Our first meeting was technically our second. We'd met a decade earlier at a college weekend, a flyby handshake and a gentle laugh about the weather. But this time it was the airport pickup, my mother in the passenger seat, Caleb driving, me in back. Ryan stepped off the escalator, suit bag over his shoulder. Calm posture, kind eyes. He saw Caleb first, smiled wide enough to show what their friendship meant, then saw me and added a second smile, quieter, as if he'd saved one just for me. It wasn't fireworks, it was recognition, the kind that registers like a pulse. At home, the house filled early. Aunties and cousins carried bundt cakes, salads, and hot casseroles like edible hugs. In the noise of pots and reunion, Ryan slipped into the kitchen with natural competence, sleeves rolled, helping my mother without asking. He leaned into the small tasks. He tasted a sauce, nodded, adjusted the salt. When I offered to slice lemons, he set the board steady with a dish towel, saying, "Fewer slips." It was practical and gentle, the sort of care I recognized from long nights at the hospital where I taught nursing students. His hands were present, not performative. It settled. Me, a trusted voice, will always ask permission before approaching the soft places. That evening, while Caleb told a story on the porch, Ryan found me inside by the sink, rinsing the last plates. He didn't make small talk. He looked at me, then at the door, then back. "Want some quiet?" he asked. I nodded. He filled 2 mugs, added honey, and led us to the side steps where the camellias grew. We didn't sit close. We sat at a respectful, breathable distance. "You okay being home?" he asked. "Mostly," I said. "You?" He smiled. "Mostly." We laughed. It was humble honesty. By Thursday morning, the rehearsal schedule had its grip on us. Tux fittings, florist runs, last-minute shoe polish. The vineyard had a small lake with a dock, and people kept drifting there between errands, the way you do when you need water to remind you that you're just a person standing under a sky. I found Ryan there, staring at a pair of geese shepherding. Goslings. He spoke without turning. "My patients always ask if big moments fix little aches," he said. "Usually they just open windows." I nodded. "You like windows?" "I do," he said. Then he turned. "You?" "You might say he made me his lover, but that isn't the right verb. He made me seen. He did it by offering careful, everyday moments and asking consent at each step. He asked if I wanted to walk with him to pick up programs. He asked if I minded his questions. He checked his assumptions aloud. I had been out for years. comfortable but careful with men who approached. Like storms, Ryan was weather in the best sense, a forecast you could plan around, clear, changeable, honest. On our way back from the print shop, he asked if I wanted to hear a secret. He didn't rush it. We were at a stoplight, his hands at 10 and 2, sunlight laid across the dashboard. "Your brother," he said, "has always told me you carry, calm even when you're hurting." I glanced over. My instinct was to deflect, but he had been kind enough to offer honesty, so I met him there. "I'm not sure I do," I said. "Mostly I carry habits that look like calm." His shoulders unclenched a little, like relief. "Me too," he said, then signaled right. "Even doctors forget to breathe." He breathed in, hands steady. I joined him, steadying too. We pretended like rehearsals are about logistics. Really, they're about belonging. The minister, a friend of the bride's family, walked us through cues and turns. Caleb looked ready to burst with joy. Our mother dabbed at her eyes. Ryan stood at Caleb's side like a lighthouse, scanning for problems and shining toward solutions. When it came time for me to walk my grandmother to her seat, Ryan met us halfway. He bent and offered his arm theatrically, making her giggle. "I got you," he said. After, he asked me how it felt in my body, his words, and I realized I felt safe. It was my sister-in-law's idea to sneak everybody into the barn after rehearsal and teach a line dance that might save the first half. Hour of the reception from awkward shuffling. The DJ put on a preview track. Somebody shouted that they needed volunteers to demonstrate. Caleb grabbed Ryan, of course. I stayed back, smiling. Ryan called to me. "Noah, you in?" It wasn't pressure. It was invitation. He held out a hand but didn't reach. I took it. His palm was warm without claims. We chased the rhythm like teenagers, missed steps, laughed, and started over. It was practical joy. That night, the house quieted one light at a time. I couldn't sleep, which is my usual at home. The memories are comforting, but the walls carry echoes. I crept to the kitchen. Ryan was already there, in a t-shirt and socks, looking down at his phone with a patient's lab results open, I guessed. He clicked it dark. "Can't sleep," he said. "Never could," I admitted. He made chamomile with ginger, just like he'd made it all week, and asked if I wanted the chair or the porch. I chose the porch. He left the light off. Stars did the rest. He told me he was doing well but tired, that the clinic was full of little illnesses that were really loneliness and fear, and sometimes it wore him down. I told him my students were brave and exhausted, and sometimes I didn't know how to teach rest. We traded stories like we were putting gentle weights on a table to keep a tablecloth from flying away. He asked me if I was seeing anyone. I said no. I asked him the same. He said, "Nobody steady." He looked like the sky. "I want steady." Then he lowered his voice. "With you?" We were two consenting adults, with a quiet porch, and a lot of time ahead of us if we wanted it. He did not assume. He asked, "Do you want to try?" He said, "A slow first date inside this fast week?" My answer arrived like an exhale. "Yes," I said. He nodded, pleased but not proud. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "I'll be awake early. There's a trail off the vineyard. It opens into a hillside. If you want to join me, meet me at the mailbox at 6. If not, I'll see you at breakfast." He cleared our mugs. He slept. The quiet has textures you only notice before the sun has made up its mind. He was there, leaning on the mailbox, one foot on the post, like a teenager restarting summer. We walked. Our shoes found rhythm. The dew lifted at our ankles. He asked about the stories I loved and the foods I craved when I missed home. He told me about being a teenager on a North Carolina baseball diamond and getting good at pretending. At the hillside, he stopped and put his hands in his pockets. "Can I hold your hand?" he asked. "Yes," I said. We did. There's an old habit people have of finding big words to justify small feelings, but this was not that. Ryan said my name like he meant it. He said, "Noah, I keep checking in with myself, and the answer keeps coming back yes." He told me that when he first met me years ago, he clocked my tenderness and didn't have a place to set it down. I was not ready then, he admitted. I am now. I told him I was afraid of being a secret. He nodded. "No secrets," he said quietly. "Not if we choose this." Honest, steady. We had a rehearsal lunch and then errands. Caleb sent us to pick up a box of last-minute vases from a shop on Merriman Avenue. We made it a mini date. We stopped for peaches from a roadside stand and napkins from a gas station because they were printed with small dancing bears that made us laugh. He did the thing he does. Asked if I wanted the window down, if the song was too loud, if stopping. To check on an elderly neighbor he'd seen sitting too long on her porch would be okay. We checked. We brought her water. We breathed. Late afternoon, the venue opened for decorating. The barn smelled like wood and wildflower centerpieces. Strings of lights stuttered before settling into warmth. I slipped into the small coat room to catch a minute of quiet and found him there, tying a piece of twine to a favor bag. He looked up, face soft. We didn't kiss. Not yet. We stood close enough to feel our bodies' heat in the small room. He asked, "Can I stand here with you?" "Please," I said. There is an intimacy in being near without taking. My chest unclenched. Someone called his name. He squeezed my hand. Saturday arrived bright, forgiving. Caleb ate toast like he had never tasted bread before. The bridesmaids practiced laughter. The air smelled like grass and possibility. The photographer called for group shots. Ryan disappeared into motions. That looked like support and appeared again and again near me. He checked my boutonniere, fingers careful. He asked if I needed water. He ran interference with a cousin who loves to ask intrusive questions. That's how you make a person your lover without touching them. You make their life kinder. He found me a quiet corner before the ceremony and said, "Slow breath." We did. We watched Caleb promise a life to a woman who looked at him like the horizon, and I thought, love should always look like partnership. When the minister asked for rings, Ryan passed them with steady hands. When the couple said, "I do," he glanced at me, just a brush, a check, a smile small enough to be ours. After the applause and the photographs, he found me mid-hug and asked if I needed shade. He knew I sunburn. He led me to a tree and we shared a bottle of water like a communion. "We're okay?" he asked. "We're okay," I said. After Caleb and his bride danced, the DJ called for everyone else to join. The barn's boards sang underfoot. Ryan asked me to dance. He didn't tug. He offered a palm. I took it. We stayed in the safe middle of the floor, where no one cares who is holding whom. We moved in a slow circle. He leaned in, not to claim a kiss, but to whisper, "I am glad it's you." My whole life slowed a notch. We didn't announce anything. We didn't hide. We were two men, fully adult, fully consenting, letting a gentle rhythm teach us pace. It happened in the vineyard's little herb garden when the sun was letting down its guard. The rosemary and thyme had been watered and looked a little defiant. We had stepped out to deliver a ribbon to the photographer and somehow stayed. He asked first. He always asked. "Can I kiss you?" he said. I looked at his mouth, at the soft lines at his eyes. The story of 33 compassionate years. "Yes," I said. The kiss was patient. It was, "This is me," not, "This is what I want from you." I forgot to be careful. It felt like arriving home. After the wedding, the real choices begin. Post-party gravity hits. People need rides. Cakes need packing. You pick up plates with someone and make 1,000 micro decisions that expose how you treat the world. With Ryan, everything was collaborative. "Which box feels right for this?" he'd ask. "Do you want to keep the flowers from our table?" He offered his jacket when the night cooled. He asked if I wanted him to walk me to the car. He asked to text me, to call me, to visit Boston soon. He asked if I wanted to tell Caleb tonight, or later. We chose the morning after. Families were softer then, all the adrenaline shaken out. We found Caleb sitting on the back steps, still wearing half a smile. Ryan sat beside him. I took the other side. "Hey," I said, "we wanted to tell you something." Caleb looked between our faces and burst into proud tears he'd deny later. "Good," he said. "Good." He hugged Ryan first, which made me laugh, because of course he did. Then he hugged me tight and whispered, "About time." We told him we would move slow, be kind to one another, and tell the rest of the family, gracefully. By Sunday afternoon, the airport hummed with reunions and farewells. We were quiet in the security line. Ryan held my hand in his coat pocket where nobody could see, not because we were ashamed, but because we were storing a small comfort for later. At the gate, he said, "I can come to Boston next month." I nodded. "I can come to Raleigh after that." He asked to kiss me. We found a corner with a window seat and the silver of airplane wings. It was another patient kiss. "Text me when you land," he said. I did. He responded, "Already breathing easier. Long distance is a test of intention and curiosity. We called every evening we could. No pressure, no performance." He used his clinic lunch breaks to send me pictures of sunlight on linoleum, or a patient's crocheted blanket with consent, or the back of his laptop covered in stickers that read, "Practice kindness," and "Vaccines save lives." I sent him photos of the Charles River in late light and the chalkboard where my students wrote their wins of the week. We traded playlists. He asked about my sleep and meant it. I asked if he was eating enough vegetables. We laughed gently. We steadied. He arrived in Boston with a duffel bag and a list of restaurants I'd mentioned offhand because he was listening, even when I wasn't sure. He was courteous with my space. He placed his toothbrush in the cup, but asked where I wanted it. He folded the blanket we'd used on the couch. He chose the guest room because we were moving at the speed of trust, not impulse. We walked through Cambridge hand in hand, letting ourselves be seen, fully adult men making a soft, steady claim. He kissed me at a crosswalk when the walk sign flashed, because he could. You asked for a trusted doctor-style tone, and I learned that tone by loving a man who practiced it. He never shamed a feeling. He validated, then explored. He asked permission before touching old stories. He would say things like, "Would it help to talk about your dad now, or would it be kinder to save that for a day with more sun?" I had lost my father in my early 20s. Grief had been a room with the door half open. Ryan waited outside that door with a mug and a blanket and no agenda. That is how trust grows tall. In October, the leaves went showy, and we drove south. For a weekend so my mother could feed us until we surrendered. The table was a landscape of gratitude. Ryan helped set it, quietly rearranging plates so my grandmother's arthritic hands wouldn't reach too far for the beans. At grace, he bowed his head without forcing the room to identify why. After dinner, we walked around the block. "You're good with people," I said. He shook his head. "I try to be present," he said. "It's enough most days." He squeezed my shoulder. He asked if I wanted to hold his hand. Every love story gets weather. We had a storm in November, a miscommunication about a late-night text. It leaned into our insecurities. I retreated. He worried. We took a beat. The next morning, he called and said, "I owe you a better explanation." He offered it. He didn't blame. I listened, then said, "I owe you a better assumption." We agreed on practical preventions. Call, not text when something matters. Say, I'm half asleep. Can we talk tomorrow? Without fear. We learned to scale the reaction to the storm, not to our histories. We got closer. Storms are teachers if you let them. We convened at Caleb's, now a married homeowner with a backyard that begged for football and naps. Ryan and I arrived with pies and a quiet declaration. We were not making a spectacle. We were naming our belonging. The cousins shrugged and asked if we wanted gravy. The uncles said, "Glad you're happy." My aunt whispered, "He has kind eyes," which is Southern, for we approve. Caleb clapped Ryan on the back and asked if he was ready to be beaten at cards. He was. That night, Ryan looked at me across a room full of dessert plates and said, "I am grateful." December makes everything softer with lights and expectations. We bought each other quiet gifts. I found him a hand-thrown mug that fit his hands. He found me a wool scarf that didn't itch. We co-wrote a tiny ritual. Sunday evenings we lit a candle and named one thing we were proud of from the week and one thing we wanted support with. Sometimes it was big. Sometimes it was, "Help me. Stop doom scrolling." He would sit with my fear the way a good physician sits with a patient, present, curious, non-judgmental, prepared to act if action is warranted, equally ready to rest together. He came to Boston in early January when the cold wakes you up at the door. We cooked soup. We watched the Bruins. We stayed in. He took careful stock of my bookshelf and laughed when he found the plant guide I kept pretending to read. Midweek, I got called in for a late hospital shift. He offered to drive me and pick me up. When I slid into the passenger seat at 2 in the morning, exhausted, he didn't ask for anything. He handed me water, turned up the heat, and wrapped the scarf he'd given me around my throat. The drive was quiet comfort. Sometimes the words arrived like an ambulance. That's not how it went for us. They came like a family sedan, properly signaled. We were in Raleigh for a weekend, walking past a mural that said, "You are here." He stopped, laughed, then sobered. "That's how I feel," he said, "with you. Here." He swallowed. "Noah, I love you." He didn't reach for my face or my waist. He held the space open. I stepped into it. "I love you," I said, to the air and the sky and his eyes. He nodded like he always nodded when something big had landed right. "I will not tell you private things that don't belong to public air, but I will say this. That night we were careful. We asked and answered. We talked through preferences like adults who knew their bodies and their boundaries. We listened to pauses. We respected no's and celebrated yeses. We practiced what we taught. Consent as a living conversation. We closed curtains and turned down lights and laughed when the fitted sheet tried to make a getaway. There was tenderness. There were pauses. There was no performance. There was relief. There was love. And it felt the way safety feels, calm and whole. Love, like a clinic, needs a plan. We laid one out at his dining table with a map of the I-95 corridor and 2 cups of coffee. We would do 6 months of long-distance alternating. Weekends. We would save for a move. We would not self-sabotage. We would build a schedule that respected fatigue. We would keep our friendships intact, not building a bubble that couldn't breathe. We called Caleb to ask about a spare room if we needed a stopover. We called my mother to tell her we were serious. She cried and said, "I knew when he cut the lemons like a gentleman." The day I moved to Raleigh, spring had returned like a hymn we could hum without the words. He met me in the parking lot with a dolly and patience. We carried boxes, labeled carefully in my mother's handwriting. We placed the plants where they would get morning sun. He showed me the drawer he had cleared. He did not make a ceremony of the toothbrush. He did not pretend we were not scared. He held me in the kitchen, next to the fridge that still hummed like winter, and said, "Welcome home." I cried, not because I was sad, but because I was safe. We kept Sunday candles. We kept slow dinners without phones. We kept gratitude and practical apologies. We kept our own friends and welcomed each other's. We kept our bodies, our boundaries, our growing list of inside jokes. We added morning stretches and a bowl for keys near the door. He hung the scarf on a hook I could reach. I filled the mug he loved with coffee that wasn't too strong. We were not trying to win any couple game, but the one that says, "Here we are daily." We learned our conflict cycle and how to interrupt it with a walk and water. Ryan had a patient who knitted him a great green scarf, neon and sincere. He wore it everywhere. He took the scarf off before leaning over a child so the tassels wouldn't tickle. I watched him in the clinic on a volunteer Saturday, the way he crouched to the level of a worried father, the way he narrated every step before he touched a wound. That is how he loved me too, with explanation and respect. I met him where he met patients, in the land of practical care. I packed his lunch on clinic days. He proofread my lecture slides. We built Ordinary Forever. We went back to that vineyard, 1 year later, this time as guests at a friend's marriage. The herb garden was taller, unruly in the best way. We stood by the rosemary where we first kissed. "Remember?" he asked. I nodded. "I was terrified," I said. "Me too," he admitted. "Worth it," he added, like a prognosis. We danced under the lights. We took a photo with Caleb and his wife, all of us soft around the edges with gratitude. On the drive home, he took my hand at a red light and said, "When you want to marry me, ask." I asked in the quiet of our living room, with only the candle and the mug and the scarf watching. We had cooked dinner and finished dishes, and the house was heavy with trust. I took a breath. "Ryan," I said, "are you ready for me to ask you a question that promises me to you?" He smiled, eyes bright. "Yes," he said. I knelt because my knees agreed to, because tradition can be repurposed kindly. "Will you marry me?" I said. He cried like weather. He said, "Yes," with gratitude. We held each other. We called Caleb, who shouted and demanded photos. We wrote vows that sounded like us. We promised to ask before assuming, to slow down. When one of us said yellow light, to check the forecast before a road trip, and our emotional forecast before a tough conversation. We promised to care for our families, chosen and given, and to remember that laughter hydrates a house. We promised to protect each other's wonder. We married in a small garden behind a library in Raleigh, magnolias standing witness. Our mothers cried. Our friends grinned. The officiant, a quiet friend, said, "You may kiss." We did. It was the same patient kiss, fuller. We bought a porch light that turns on automatically at dusk. It was a small luxury, but it meant friends always found the right house. It meant we always had a way home. Some nights, we sat beneath it with tea and watched the neighborhood soften. We waved to dog walkers. We returned a wandering cat. We remembered the kitchen where we first shared late-night tea and the mailbox, where we started and the herb garden where we learned we could be ourselves safely. The light is not dramatic. It is steady. That's how love feels here. That's how he made me his lover. If you're listening for a moral, here it is, spoken in the voice that got us here. Take a breath. Ask permission. Believe that small kindnesses stack into durable bridges. Say what is true without hurry. Slow is not the enemy of love. It is the architecture. Be brave enough to be tender. Be tender enough to be brave. When storms come, scale your response to the weather at hand, not the hurricane that left town 10 years ago. And when someone holds out a hand like a question, consider answering with a yes that is both careful and complete. That's what we did.